You're very welcome. Radio Espial, episode 67, Missing in the Netherlands, 3 cases. You will have previously seen our last episode, James Patrick Grealish. That was a full timeline. We're moving now into 3 cases. It won't be quite as extensive on 3 cases. Brian will be joining us for the review of the cases, and I want to stress now, these cases span between 2009 and 2022. They were missing in the Netherlands at the time of their disappearance, vanishing. All 3 cases, you are going to hear about the outcome of them, and we'll get into that more as we go through the 3 cases. Quickly, thank you to all our recent subscribers. It's been phenomenal the last 2 or 3 weeks. I think we've gained over 300 subscribers, new subscribers. You're all very welcome. This is how we roll. This is how we do things. And to show you, let's get straight into it. Okay, Brian joins us. Brian, you're very welcome for these 3 cases missing in the Netherlands. Before we start, any words, any thoughts?
I suppose at least it was remains recovered there, Mick. Anyway, that's something anyway.
I make no illusions. I said it at the start. You know, if you think this is going to be all intrigue and I know it's the series is called Missing in the Netherlands, but these 3 cases all have outcomes which we're going to go through in each of the cases.
Yeah, indeed. So I think that's I mean, positive maybe is the wrong word, but I think it's kind of the closest thing to
closure or
positive outcome that those families could get. Like, there's no consolations, but it's
no, and it's a better position than an awful lot of people. Are in an awful lot of families.
It's doubly difficult there. Like, I mean, whatever about missing cases in your home place, but in when it's abroad, and you've got even despite the fact that the Dutch are such great linguists, like it's still it's still very difficult having to navigate different different rules and different cultures and everything. As you often say, Mick, there's no rule book for this. Even with the home cases, not to mind abroad, then it's just if you were to concoct a rule book, it'd be twice as long. Like, so it's very difficult for those families. So at least they got remains back in these cases anyway, Mick.
Okay, we'll move on then with our first one. You can see it there on screen. Missing in the Netherlands are 3 cases in this order: Andrew Furey, Noel Gill, and Paul Nolan Miralles. So let's start with Andrew's case. The missing date, April the 11th, 2022. Do remember some of these cases, they start on the events often in the evening, and they can trim into the early hours of the following day. Location, Rembrandtplein, Amsterdam. I won't go into the discovery details at the moment. Andrew was originally from Lisbon, Northern Ireland, age 48. Now, his status at the time in 2022, when he went missing, when he vanished, he was a tourist travelling with family members. We'll hear more about that shortly. So, our case summary on Andrew. Andrew Furey, from Lisbon, Northern Ireland, travelled to the Netherlands in April 2022 with his 2 brothers and nephew for a short holiday break. On the evening of April the 11th, after a night out in Amsterdam, he separated from his fellow family company and disappeared. He was last seen in the popular Rembrandtplein area of the city. He disappeared without trace and did not return to the holiday apartment he had booked to stay in that evening. Now, our fuller case background. Andrew grew up in County Antrim, Northern Ireland. He was born to Sean and Marjorie Furey in 1974. Andrew was one of a large family of 8 siblings. 3 sisters, Eileen, Joanne and Mary, and we'll hear more from Joanne later, and 4 brothers, Eamon, Aidan, Gerard and Martin. Andrew was a friendly guy with many friends and came from a very close family. When he set out on his trip from Antrim, he was living originally at Beachland Drive in Lisbon. It was intended to be a relaxing trip with 3 of his family members to the Netherlands. However, his sister Joanne has confirmed that Andrew had dealt with mental health issues in the past, and when he chose to separate from their company on the evening of Monday, April the 11th, 2022. As the hours passed, they grew understandably concerned. He had not returned to the holiday rental where he was staying by the following morning, and he had separated from the family group in what was described as a bad mood. They reported him missing almost straight away on Tuesday, April the 12th, following day. The family members searched but could not find him anywhere. Andrew had departed company in a poor state of mind and also, at the time, was not in the ideal health. He was reported missing to the local Dutch police with a very definitive proviso that his family were very worried about his welfare. Now, Brian, I think we've said this before, haven't we? In those initial hours, and usually it comes from a police enforcement case, and it quickly filters into those social media, online support groups, trying their best to put out the alerts that, whether it's Garda, Dutch police in this case, put out. When you hear that keyword, and as a journalist I know what that keyword means, when welfare or well-being is mentioned, it generally leads you down an avenue where the family are concerned. So in missing person cases, a description is always issued. He was described as being around 1.75 meters in height. I think that's around 5'9", 5'8", 5'9", with a thin build and a stubble beard. He wore glasses.
1.83 is 6 foot. So sorry. 1.83 is 6 foot, and there's 2.54 centimeters in an inch. So it's about 2.5 centimeters to an inch. So if you knock off the 0.08, that. And
of course, this would have been issued in the Netherlands, which would work on the metric scale. I know even in Ireland, Britain, we still, when we talk about height of person, it's still feet and inches, even though we're, we work predominantly with metric. So he was striking. The stubble beard, wears glasses, and often a hat. Now the hat was quite a prominent feature and characteristic that he loved to wear. But when the words welfare, as we've said, is used for media and journalists, we know this missing person case reflects concerns directly provided by the family to authorities that requires an immediate search. Now remember, we're in the bracket of somebody who's in their, well, what did we say? I think, did I say 48? And when we're in that, unless you're talking about somebody who's maybe got a disability, who is perhaps very elderly, and the welfare check, the welfare concern, well-being is not something you generally allude to somebody in their 20s, 30s, 40s, even 50s and 60s. So as the hours passed, the family grew concerned. He had not returned to the holiday rental. They reported him missing straight away on the Tuesday, April the 12th. The family members searched but could not find him anywhere. Angel had departed the company in that poor state of mind. He was reported missing. He was described as said. In other words, the family and our authorities believed there was a high chance or mishap or concern if the person is left alone for their own well-being. Now, out of respect to Andrew's family, I'm not going to disclose any further details on that case. Andrew's family did consider if he had left the locale of Amsterdam City and headed somewhere else. Now, I'm going to be clear here. I've no idea why they suggested that to the Dutch police. They had their concerns for his well-being. Maybe he said something that evening to them that maybe raised concerns. You know, he left them not in a good mood, and that doesn't bode well. Over the following days, the family did all they could to raise concern, which is difficult when you're in a country where you're not even living there yourselves. You're only on holiday for a short time. So they sought the Irish consular assistance in the Netherlands, and they made contact with both local and Irish media about the whereabouts of their brother. Now, yeah, it's just something, it's an avenue you try, but obviously if you're on holiday somewhere else, then I'm not sure what help you're going to get back in your home country, and, you know, as far as reporting is going to be concerned. Now, his mobile phone ceased operation. Now, that means it was either switched off or the battery ran out of charge, coincidentally, at that time. The family then believed that it was switched off. The Dutch police did conduct searches, considered that he could have left the city of Amsterdam. The family sort of suggested, is this a possibility? And were open also to a criminal possibility, the police and the family.
Sorry, Mick, I suppose just a quick point on the media.
Yeah.
It's a long shot, all right, but I mean, I suppose one thing they might hope is that if there was Irish on holidays there, they might still be picking up the media, and it might trigger something. There is that small hope that something like that would happen, so I presume that's why they put it out in the
Or of course,
media,
he could have, as it were, phoned a friend in not the greatest, sense of mind. He could have phoned a friend, and suddenly someone in Ireland did actually know. Yeah, well, I actually talked to him that evening, So I take a point. Yeah, there is a relevance to it. Now, all that ended on Wednesday, April the 20th. So this is the following week, literally 9 days after Andrew's disappearance. His body was found on the Rembrandtplein sign, not a great deal of distance from where he was last seen on the Rembrandtplein. You can see that image there, and what I'm gonna do is, because people always say, "Oh, Mick, the images are too we can't make them out." You can see the area, which is that right side, the red dot. That's where ultimately his body was found. Now, I want to stress that's very close to Parkland. His body was not found in the water. It was found in the Parkland. The other extreme side of the left, and you'll see that name, the Rembrandtplein. It's a famous museum area. So it's 6 minutes by tram, Dutch tram, to walk it. Well, I'd say you'd be talking about 25 minutes, maybe half an hour to walk that. I'm sure you could probably, through side streets, get there more directly. But that is just to give you an idea of the distance from where he was last seen with family until ultimately that canal and Parkland area where ultimately his body was found. Now, on examination, they concluded a criminal offence. This was the Dutch police and authorities. They excluded a criminal offence and third-party involvement. Police respected family wishes and did not release details about the nature of Andrew's death, nor the specific person who discovered his body. The family launched a fundraising appeal through Just Giving, and this was at a time before his body was found, to help cover the costs of bringing Andrew's body home to Lisburn in Northern Ireland. And ultimately, unfortunately, that is what the Just Giving campaign became ultimately for them. And in fact, wonderfully, it did raise over €10,000. The family, I suppose understandably, shocked by the circumstances, repatriation of Andrew's remains. There was quite a while before they made any, and I know this is a difficulty for families where they go from one moment through huge height and awareness of a case and a loved one who's missing, and then there is some closure and resolution for them, and then people, the general public, get frustrated then. Oh, what's happening about poor Andrew who went missing, and they don't hear much on it. That's understandable, and it's very difficult for the families because they're having to process, and you can imagine the Furey family having to process an awful lot of information. From his notification of his death, Furey, Andrew, April the 20th, 2022, suddenly in the Netherlands, late of Beachland Drive, Lisbon, dearly beloved son of Sean and Marjorie, loving brother of and friend to Eileen, Eamon, Aidan, Gerard, Joanne, Mary and Martin, his siblings. His funeral from his home, Thursday, April the 28th, to St. Patrick's Church, Chapel Hill, Lisbon, 10 a.m. Requiem Mass followed, and his ultimate interment, sadly, into the Holy Trinity Cemetery. The family did ultimately release a statement, but it took them some time, understandably. His sister, Joanne Wolfe, in May 2022, and this was from that Just Giving campaign online, and in her words, on behalf of all the family, please accept our apologies for not updating sooner. We will shortly be closing this Just Giving page, and will be in contact with the Kevin Bell Repatriation Trust, to whom all donations will be going. The trusts were absolutely amazing. The family contacted the trust just after 7 a.m. on Thursday the 21st of April, not expecting to hear from them until normal office hours, but within 10 minutes a response was received from Colin Bell with his mobile number, and we spoke with him shortly afterwards. He took complete control, liaising with their team in Amsterdam and the funeral directors in Lisbon to spare the family as much of the worry as possible, and Andy was home in Northern Ireland 5 days later. Words fail us as to how amazing the trust are. We will never be able to thank them enough for their help and support through one of the most difficult times. Truly remarkable family and trust. We would like to thank each and every one of you who have donated. Your kindness and generosity has been astonishing. Thank you doesn't seem to come to be enough to show you all how grateful we are. The amount raised so far has surpassed what we had hoped to achieve. Thank you all. We thank all family, friends, neighbours and indeed strangers for your kind thoughts and acts. Your thoughts, condolences and kind words meant so much to all of us. We have loved sharing memories and stories of Andy with you all. Thank you to all who were able to join us at the funeral, both in person and online, and thank you again, and the best wishes to you all. And that's signed off by the family, Sean and Marjorie, the parents and the siblings. Brian, just before we move on to our case, I think the reason why I chose that case as an opening, even though it has its sad end, I think it starts for us as we get into the two other cases to explore the difficulty for families and how a case can suddenly, on a coin, flip and change literally within hours. You're searching for a loved one. You're trying to pull all these resources together. The Kevin Bell Foundation, and we're going to hear more about some of these other amazing organisations who do work for families.
You often see it there in the RIF.ie and the great work. I mean, they just do huge work for those families. Like when someone passes away abroad there, like, you know, you see them regularly there. Like, but yeah, it's like you say, coin toss. It's almost like the Schrodinger's cat thing. You know,
you're in it and you're outside of it at the same time, and you don't know where you are.
You don't know what's happening, or you don't know what's happened to the person, and then suddenly it's like, I don't know if ever that the Schrodinger's cat, the thought experiment he did about for quantum physics, but either way, then you find out what actually happened then, and then it's another ball game again, because the hope is gone of finding them alive, and then it changes, like you said, you know.
Okay, we're going to move on to our next case.
So, sorry, I didn't mean any disrespect comparing it
No.
I
totally understand that. Totally understand it. So on to our next case. Noel Gill, missing date November the 19th, 2009. Rembrandtplein, Rotterdam, Netherlands. Originally from Westport, Mayo, Ireland. Age 29. Now, the status at the time when Noel went missing, he was an Irish expat. Unlike our previous case, he wasn't on holidays here. He was actually living in Rotterdam. Now, our case summary. In November 2009, like many Irish expats living in the Netherlands and working in the construction industry, Noel Gill was celebrating the lead up to his 30th birthday. Noel, a builder from Westport, Mayo, Ireland, had relocated from his wife and 2 young children back in Ireland in search of work. Now, I want to start, they weren't split up around this. Was he had to go to the Netherlands to seek work to support his wife and kids. The Liverpool football fanatic spent the evening of Wednesday, November the 18th, with friends in a bar in Rotterdam watching Ireland's World Cup qualifying match against France. He was last seen in the early hours of Thursday morning, November the 19th, crossing over the Erasmus Bridge near Rembrandtplein in the city of Rotterdam. His subsequent reported disappearance initiated an extensive search for his whereabouts. Now, the full case background. Noel Gill.
Just for the timeline there, is that was the match with the infamous Henry.
That is the match. So people will go, yep, I have a fix on it. Yeah, everybody will remember where they were. And Noel Gill was in Rotterdam, living there. He was born originally in Hawkins Hill, Westport, County Mayo, on November the 20th, 1979, to Frank and Bertie Gill. He was the youngest in the family, with a sister, Caroline, and 2 brothers, Pádraig and Frank Jr. Noel was social and outgoing, and from an early age became a football fanatic and supporter of Liverpool Football Club. After leaving school, Noel studied and skilled himself as a builder, and he travelled and worked in several places in Europe, in particular Germany. Those years helped him form many long-term friendships. Indeed, it was here that romance with his German-born wife Cindy blossomed, and the two would resettle in Ireland and raise 2 children. During his 20s, back in Ireland, Noel and his brother Pádraig established GG Drylining, but the vagaries of the economic decline in Ireland hit the building industry hard by the late 2000s, and by the autumn of 2008, Noel decided to return to mainland Europe in search of work. He settled in the city of Rotterdam, but would take frequent trips every few weeks to return to Mayo to see Cindy and his 2 sons, Christopher and Sion, aged 10 and 5. Keane. Sorry, Keane. You're right.
Yeah.
Now, the disappearance and aftermath. On the evening of Wednesday, November the 18th, 2009, Noel Gill left his home in Rotterdam and headed out to meet friends and watch the Football World Cup qualifying match between Ireland and France in a busy bar. He was in the company of Eddie Brady, a close friend, and several other friends. The match, the second of two legs, was held in Paris and kicked off at 9 p.m. local Dutch time. The match was tight and intense and would ultimately go to extra time. It did not end until just before 11:30 p.m. that evening. A long and emotional evening for the Irish football supporters in Rotterdam bars. And incidentally, a busy night because the Dutch national team were also playing a friendly that night against Paraguay in Eindhoven at home, and this was broadcast nationally on TV. So a flourishing and very busy night in the bars. We do not know the precise movements of Noel Gill and his friends that night. What we do know is that sometime between 4 and 4:30 a.m. early hours of the following morning, Noel leaves the bar he had been last at in the company of one of the barmen. The barman states to Dutch police later that he saw him crossing over the Erasmus Bridge near Rembrandtplein, walking home, and that was the last he saw of him. Now on Thursday evening, November the 19th, so in other words later that day, 4 to 4:30 a.m. that evening on the Thursday, Eddie Brady, one of the people he was with that previous evening, Noel's close friend, phones Bernie, his mother, in Ireland. He's exasperated, but keeps it simple. He doesn't want to unduly alarm her. Please don't get alarmed, Bernie, but we can't find Noel. Eddie knows Noel through and through. A day does not go by without contact between Eddie and Noel. They're best buddies. Bernie has always considered Eddie his guardian angel. His words matter, and they carry considerable weight. If Eddie doesn't know where Noel is, something is seriously wrong. Noel is reported missing to the Dutch police. You don't not turn up for your own birthday the following day, which was the Friday. November the 20th through to the 22nd. The family don't hesitate. They act immediately. They book flights for the weekend and head to the Netherlands. Caroline, the sister, and Cindy, Noel's wife, are joined by another of Noel's close friends, Mark Sheridan, who travels immediately from Belfast. An alert is put out by Dutch police, and that alert, the details where Noel Gill, 5'8", weighs 75 kilograms, the night he disappeared, wearing white runners, faded baggy jeans and a zip up top with large horizontal stripes. Noel has a number of tattoos on his body, which happen to be his two kids' names, including one on his left arm of a cross, a Celtic cross, and the words "You'll never walk alone," obviously reflecting the Liverpool theme. He has two stud earrings in his left ear. Over the next week to 10 days, Dutch authorities commence waterway and land searches. Checks in local hostels, hotels and hospitals turn up nothing. All that is known is that Noel never returned to his home the night of his disappearance. His wife Cindy is adamant that with an aversion to water, Noel cannot have simply ended up in the canals of Rotterdam. Sunday, December the 6th, 2009. Brian, before I go on, is there...
Yeah, very just tough family living situation.
Yeah.
And then this...
Yeah, and we saw that so often at the time.
Yeah.
You know, whether it was the UK, the Netherlands, Germany, you know, men and women...
Everything was thrown in disarray.
Abroad, having to work to support a family and kids back home.
Yeah, it was like back to the 1980s again. I remember,
and the 50s, you know, in America, Australia, sending money, wording money back home, postal orders back home.
Yeah, it was very much. I mean, like I said, I mean, growing up in the 80s, I remember that, like, there was the, you know, friend of the family builder and that, like, and he'd be gone, he'd be just gone to England, working over there and sending it back again, like you say. So similar again, but, you know, so that's hard, especially with two kids, like, you know, it was a different scenario from the case we covered last week. This was by necessity there, much more so for the family.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sunday, December the 6th, 2009. This will be a difficult day for the Gill family. Almost 17 days after Noel's disappearance, particularly for Cindy and Caroline. Dutch authorities involved in the search for Noel informed the Gardaí that a body has been located in Rotterdam earlier that Sunday morning and recovered, not far from where Noel originally disappeared in November. Community Liaison Garda, Jim Corrigan, informs the family in Westport. They cannot be certain until the body is properly examined. It is being recovered from a canal in Rotterdam at Willemscade. Again, I'll show you this picture in full. So again, you can see the locations there. They're at the very top centre, Rembrandtplein, and right down the bottom, close to the waterway, the canal area, and you can see the Erasmus Bridge, and that is essentially where the body was located in the water. A 7-minute journey by car, probably again about maybe a 20-25 minute walk. At 1:10 p.m. on that Sunday, Garda Corrigan informs Noel's mother Bernie that the body is indeed that of her son Noel, and that identification has also been recovered from the body, and the clothing also fits with his last known appearance and dress. Noel's wallet, containing ID and driving licence, also his keys, are recovered from the body. Caroline, Noel's sister, later formally identifies his body in the Rotterdam morgue. No marks indicating an incident of violence was observed from the recovered body. Dutch police concluded there was no foul play and a post-mortem was unnecessary. For Caroline, it's a double heartbreak. Still consoling Cindy, Noel's wife, she is informed of shocking and tragic news from home in Ireland that her own husband, Peter Garrity, just 39 years of age, earlier that day collapsed and died of a sudden heart attack while just after he got into his car. Fortunately, he wasn't driving, and tragic circumstances. So there's no words to describe what the Gill and Garrity families were going through at that time. Noel Gill's body was repatriated home the following week on Sunday, December 13, 2009. He was laid to rest at the Oakwell Cemetery, Westport, County Mayo.
Very tragic.
Brian, that's
double
that's
tragedy.
just, I mean, to get that kind of news for a relatively young woman, with young kids, of her husband, when she's already in the Netherlands consoling Cindy, who herself has just been told, we've ID'd the body. It's just unfathomable that kind of those two, the Garrity family and the Gill family, went through that horrific weekend.
Lost her brother and husband in one go. It's horrific. I'm kind of I'm a bit surprised that that they deemed a post-mortem unnecessary. You'd still say you'd expect they'd still do a post-mortem.
We're going to touch on this as well, with the whole idea of, we come across this in other cases. Somebody's reported missing. When are they missing? What the process in the Netherlands is, if you report somebody missing, in your eyes they're missing. In Dutch police's eyes and the law, they're not missing. What they do is they raise what's called in Dutch law a protocol, and it's simply a form they fill out, and unless you can provide them with imminent again, we reflect on our first case of well-being or details. They won't escalate it unless they have reason to suspect there's some form of criminality or the person is in immediate danger. Unless you can prove to them, it's like, well, they're missing. Everybody has the right to go missing, and they're just they assume, in essence, in a weird kind of way, in Dutch law, if you go missing, the automatic assumption is you have decided to go missing, not that something untoward has happened and you've misadventure or you've gone missing, not planned, shall we say. And it's a very curious Dutch law that leads to this kind of situation that we're seeing in these three cases.
But it's like the seeing is believing kind of thing. It's like, you know, and even, I don't know, I think that's like they're saying there, no marks indicating violence, but like the whole point of doing a post-mortem is to look in detail at a body, like, because
and to ensure that we can exclude that.
Exactly, because you can have an initial look at the body to say, okay, it doesn't look like anything here, no, but we'll know more once we've done the post-mortem. That's kind of the general and proper way of doing things. You think that, like, you know, just because there's nothing visual on the body at first observation doesn't mean that nothing's happened. That's the whole point of doing a post-mortem is that you dig into it and you look in detail at what was in the bloodstream, any internal bruising, whatever, like, you know.
Yeah, and I mean, on a personal detail, and I'm going back to on a family matter. In 1967, my grandfather, while having a bath in Crumlin, collapsed and had a massive heart attack in the bath. That was 1967. There was still a post-mortem held to conclude, you know, just in case there was something else. You know, did he slip? Did he have an accident? Was there some other reason? They still could tell us what the reason was for his actual death. So I really don't understand Dutch law, and it isn't just Dutch law. I believe there are other countries in Europe also have this similar approach. Spain, Portugal, I think, have similar approaches as well, and we know we're not even going to go down that road of other cases, missing person cases. And it just creates more problems than it resolves.
Yeah. So is there some people in that, to put it bluntly, Mick, is there people who go, that's another lad who fell in the canal? Is that the mentality?
Yes, I think so. Yes. And because a lot of the cases that we've looked at, I think we've looked at 10 or 12 of these cases, and that we've put it down into the synopsis of previously, the Grealish case, and then these three cases, and I'm going to briefly mention other notable cases towards the end of this episode after our third case. And I think this is the problem, and this isn't an Irish people in the Netherlands. This could be German people in the Netherlands. This could be any other nationality of people, but I think there is a perception. You go missing in the Netherlands, sure, it's obvious what happened, you know. Went in the water, you know, canals, you can't avoid, you can barely avoid them, you know.
Is there any difference with how they treat the Dutch people then if that happens, or is there more care put into it, or not, or is it the same?
I personally haven't experienced that with other missing people. It tends to be, they're not excluding people from the process that are Irish or Russian or from Latvia or Romania or American. It's the same process. They're all the same. She just went in the canal. And maybe in our thoughts and conclusions we'll discuss a little bit more about that and the nature and geography of Amsterdam and cities in the Netherlands, why it seems to be something that crops up. But however, let's move on to our third and final case. Yeah, this is a particularly difficult case as well. This is Paul Nolan Miralles. Missing date April the 12th, 2011. Occurrence Amsterdam, Netherlands. Paul Nolan Miralles was originally from Dublin, I think Clonsilla, Dublin, age 36. Again, similar, also in the prime of their life. His status, again, wasn't on holiday, was living there for many years. Irish expat living in the Netherlands 10 years. His case summary. Paul Nolan Miralles from Dublin, Ireland, lived in the Netherlands for more than 10 years, having moved there in his mid-20s. The successful photographic artist was also working a part-time job in the Hard Rock Cafe. On the night of April the 12th, 2011, he was out socialising with friends. He was last seen around 4 a.m. retrieving his bicycle from the cafe and heading home to his apartment, about 18 minutes away. He never got home that morning, completely vanished, and all contact with family and friends ceased from that time onwards. He was reported missing and a search commenced for his whereabouts. The full case background. Born in Clonsilla, Dublin, Ireland on the December the 5th, 1974, Paul Nolan Miralles, as I say, lived in Clonsilla, the son of Brendan and Rosario. Paul grew up in a half Irish and half Spanish family with 3 brothers, Jamie, David and Michael, and 2 sisters, Anne and Sarah.
I think it's Chaim, is it, or something?
Chaim, yeah, it's the way it's pronounced, so forgive some of my pronunciation.
And that's the classic Spanish thing. They use the 2 surnames as well.
Yeah.
The Spanish do that as well.
He was very proud of his family's culture and origins and thrived academically and actively at school in his teenage years. He played rugby for his secondary school team, Marion College, and by 2000 he graduated with a bachelor's degree in photography from the DIT, Dublin Institute of Technology, with a certificate in photography from UCD, the University College Dublin. Not long after completing his studies, he moved to Amsterdam and lived there happily with his German girlfriend for more than 10 years. He held several exhibitions of his photographic work and was also always active on some project. His first exhibition of his photographic art, called On the Surface, was held in Amsterdam in 2008 in collaboration with his friend and fellow photographer Lauro Gavoni. Paul was always a deep thinker, gregarious, warm and a sensitive person in company. He was a larger-than-life character with many wide and eclectic tastes in cinema, art and music. But there was always still time made for football. He was an avid Aston Villa and Real Madrid fan. His dog Quentin was named after Quentin Tarantino. He was an addictively popular character, never more so when he worked his waiter shifts at the Hard Rock Cafe. His friends and the cafe patrons knew him as Lord Paul, and he had a particular fun habit of handing out yellow and red cards to clients if he felt they had misbehaved in any way, ensuring they would come back again and again for more.
Character, so
a wonderful character.
Yeah.
Now, on the day of his disappearance, on the night of April the 12th, 2011, Paul was enjoying a night out with friends at the L&B Whiskey Cafe on Korte Leidenswaardstraat in the Leidersplein. He was in good spirits that Tuesday evening. The area is well known for its busy and buzzing nightlife, where crowds are entertained by street performers, and the surrounding streets were filled with bars and restaurants, theatres, stand-up comedy and music venues, while iconic concert venues like the famous Paradiso Melkweg host DJ gigs and shows by indie and big name bands. All the reasons Paul had adopted Amsterdam as his home from home. All that is known on the night that he went missing. As it drew into the early hours of the morning, Paul and his friends headed for home. He told at least one friend that he would head the short distance back to the Hard Rock Cafe, just a few minutes away, and pick up his bicycle to ride home. Just to clarify that, he worked there. He was on the Leidseplein, and the Hard Rock Cafe was a short distance away, and he decided he would go back to his workplace, where he kept his bicycle, riding into work on his bicycle, and he would pick it up and he'd head home. This is the last his friends would ever hear from him. Now, we'll start with our first map, and our first map is that L&B. That's that L&B whiskey cafe, and you can see it on one side of that canal on the Leidseplein. And you can see the Paradiso band place, and where you see down the bottom the Blue Boat Company. Now I know it's not marked, just across from there where you see the Arran Irish Pub and that red symbol, that Arran Irish Pub, don't mind that, that is actually the complex where the Hard Rock Cafe was. So he travelled that distance, and literally walking from the Leidseplein area of where the whiskey cafe was, the L&B, to the Hard Rock Cafe to pick up his bicycle. It's literally four minutes. You call it 5 minute walk. It's literally nothing of a distance to actually walk.
It's the default mode of transport in Amsterdam.
Yeah, and people say, why did you go to get a bike? But
that's the way everyone goes around there.
That's it. Kids from the age of 2 or 3 years of age are on bicycles going to school with their parents. That's just the way it works. Now, our second map, because I want to give you an idea of, you can see there again on the bottom right corner, the Leidseplein again, and you can see there where the furthest most point, the Hard Rock Cafe. So that's supposedly where he's going to pick up his bike. And if you follow that blue line trail along on bicycle, 2.3 kilometers, 9 minutes on your bicycle, to that area off to the east, no, west. Yeah, west. The northwest. That's where he lived. Again, a 9-10 minute bike ride away. That's the only distance he was travelling.
Yeah.
So let me go back here, switching maps. Back to April the 13th to the 17th, 2011. This is Wednesday through to the Sunday. So we're gone from the Tuesday into the early hours of Wednesday. Over the following days, without any contact or communication, and a formal missing person protocol raised with Dutch local police, concerns for Paul's well-being and whereabouts increase. No calls, no social media activity, no sightings, and Paul has still not returned home nor attended work at the Hard Rock Cafe where his shifts are. With only cursory searches by Dutch police in the area, due to them still not seeing any evidence of a crime or immediate welfare concern, Paul's family.
Back to this again.
Yeah, we're back to same themes. See, same themes coming up. Paul's family in Ireland and Spain have already been arriving in Amsterdam to assist Elsa Riddick, his girlfriend, since Thursday, April the 14th. That is, Rosario, his mother, and his sister Anne, who have flown in from Paris, where she lives. Jaime, am I pronouncing it correctly again?
I'm not sure exactly. I think this is it Jaime or something. Yeah.
His brother has also arrived. More friends and relatives begin to arrive and assist in the ground and waterway searches, but the Dutch police response still seems somewhat lackluster after all these days. The family and friends organised missing person flyers to place in the area and hand in at various venues in the locale. The family threatened to launch their own full-scale search and have already been in contact with private search and rescue companies. This is just a photo, an image of the flyer that Anna Rovanov, his sister, actually put out, and you can see this was very, very early details, carrying, the basic details, his description. I'm not going to read out that address. You can see where he did actually live, and I show that area on the map, and the lighter said Plein area, and the L&B Whiskey Cafe. April the 18th.
Geez, they were on it there, like, with the post.
Yeah, they really, of our 3 cases, this one is really the most intense I've seen from the family at a very, very early stage. The family intensified their efforts on Dutch, Spanish and English social media sites, and they tried to harness aid and guidance from the Irish Embassy in The Hague. Also, the Sydney Zohorn Association, Sydney Search Dogs, that translates, a non-profit foundation that aims to track down missing people using search dogs in combination with a dedicated and skilled team for missing persons in the water in disasters and complex missing person cases. Deep down, Paul's family have always accepted this is where the case of their son and brother might end. There is always the hope a missing person will turn up, alive and well, but for such a social and a friendly person like Paul Nolan Miralles, it seems unlikely almost after a week. Under advice, the family have kept their boots on the ground search fixed on the direct area around the Singel Canal close to the Hard Rock Cafe. After all, this is the last place where Paul was headed at 4 a.m. on April the 13th.
And just cleared the route he was going to take as well. If he was
he made it clear what route he was taking to his home. Yeah. Paul's brother, Jaime, and mother are looking out over the canal. In that instant, they knew. They are not certain immediately, but again, something comes to the surface, and it's a body. It's a body. He eventually summons police, but then at least one canal tour boat has passed through the popular area and over the body. Then nothing. By the time Dutch police have coordinated support and equipment to go in to trawl with boats with sonar and search the area, it is the following day. Staff from the nearby Hard Rock Cafe inform police that they have also seen from windows a body appear and disappear on the surface of the water that previous day. Wednesday, April the 19th. The grim task begins for the family. It is clear what occurred that previous day. A shredded jacket, t-shirt and bag belonging to Paul are scooped out of the Singel Canal. We will never know why Paul's body surfaced and was not spotted for many days after its disappearance. Perhaps it had been snagged and under the water for some days and somehow came free by the following week. Dutch tourist canal boats are equipped with very powerful engines and propellers to assist them navigating the tight city waters. Thursday, April the 20th through April the 22nd. During this period, Dutch search teams start locating partial human remains. Firstly, a shoulder from the Singel Canal. The family formally identified the recovered and shredded clothing. These later body parts found will be identified through DNA tests. What remained and recovered of Paul's body was returned to his family over the following days and weeks. May 2011. Paul's funeral took place on May the 12th, 2011 in Hunstown, Dublin, 1 month after his disappearance. After cremation, his ashes were scattered in Katwijk, a quiet western coastal town in the Netherlands, on May the 14th, overlooking the path home to Ireland. September the 2012 inquest. and this was held in Dublin, not the Netherlands, Dublin. The inaction of Dutch police meant that the family of Paul Nolan Miralles, aged 36, from Clonsilla, Dublin, were forced to spend 3 days searching for his body parts, the Dublin Coroner's Court heard and concluded. A photographer who had lived in Amsterdam for 10 years, Mr. Nolan Miralles, went missing in the early hours of April the 13th last year after drinks at the Hard Rock Cafe. I believe they incorrect there, was actually the Rembrandtplein. He was headed to the Hard Rock Cafe later that evening, where he'd been working. The alarm was raised later that day, but under Dutch law, a person is only considered missing, see, hello, same theme again, after 48 hours. Members of his family, including his mother Rosario Nolan and sister Anne Ravona, travelled to the city on learning of his disappearance. Miss Nolan told the court she knew her son was dead because he was not the type to disappear. She said that on the morning of April 18th, she was standing at the canal outside the Hard Rock Cafe waiting for the police to arrive when she saw her son's intact body float to the surface. The following day, restaurant staff saw the body in the water once again. 2 policemen were nearby.
Crazy enough.
Yeah. And to quote, "If the police had stretched a little bit farther, they could have secured the body," said Miss Nolan. "They did not do that, and they did not stop the canal traffic, and therefore my son's body was shredded." The family were then forced to conduct their own search from April the 21st and received no assistance from Dutch police. Miss Ravanona read out a list of body parts retrieved from the canal over the following days. To quote her, "You look at horror films and you don't believe it could happen, but it really did." Dutch police also failed to retrieve crucial CCTV footage from a casino, I think that was the Holland Casino, opposite the site where Paul Nolan Miralles is thought to have gone into the water. No innocents came forward. The body was identified using DNA sampling. State pathologist Marie Cassidy, at the time Marie Cassidy, carried out an autopsy but said it was not possible to determine an exact cause of death due to a limited amount of body parts recovered. In the absence of evidence indicating how Paul Nolan Miralles ended up in the water, Coroner Brian Farrell returned an open verdict. He stated that he would write to the Dutch authorities reflecting the concerns of the family. The family set up the Paul Nolan Miralles Association to help families whose loved ones go missing in Amsterdam by sharing what they learned during the search.
Sorry, make a quick question.
Yeah.
Did his bike show up at all? Was it in the canal or on the bank?
My understanding is the bike was never retrieved from the Hard Rock Cafe. In other words, what befell Paul occurred clearly shortly before he got to the Hard Rock. Before it just, as you turn, if you look back in the map, as you turn that corner around into that precinct, that district, whatever happened and how he fell, ended up in the water, happened just before. There's no record of the bike. My understanding is was still there. He didn't head off on the bike because he would have been going, as you said, northwest and upwards on that 10-minute cycle. No, the bike was still in the Hard Rock Cafe and had never been retrieved.
Jeez, that's shocking, particularly considering like those. I mean, Jesus, like they were standing there and it came up, but like where, like this is a place that is the canals are a central part of navigating around and everything. That like those police were actually like the canals are a central part of the whole thing. Like they're used to dealing with water and all that. It's like they're the equivalent. They're equivalent of streets, is what I'm saying. They're the equivalent of streets. If the body's found on the street, you cordon everything off.
Yeah. You're not just policing the streets; you're policing the canals as well.
Exactly.
In other words,
that makes it doubly bad that they should have been saying, "Jesus, you got to stop these. Sorry, you got to stop these boats coming through." Like,
and there are points, radio points on those canal waterways.
Yeah.
Because those. And believe me, I've been on a number of them, both with travelling relatives who come over here and friends who come over here, and you when you sit on them, you can feel the hum and the power of those engines, and they can turn on a sixpence. You know, so the propellers on those boats are quite large, because you could have up to 20, 30, 40 people in a boat, and it's so tight. They have to turn, reverse, navigate, twist around. You know, on a body.
You're very exact in a small space.
Yeah,
You've got the power for controlling that.
Yeah, and it takes an awful lot of training and skill to drive those boats, pilot those boats, and well, you don't have to compare. Well, we've just seen for a body to go through one of those propellers. You've just heard that's what happens when that occurs.
Yeah, you see, go on.
Yeah, and just tragic.
Yeah, shocking. Like, I mean,
I'm not sure, good or bad, whether family had to witness that, literally almost witness the event.
But some coincidence, it kind of came up at the time they were looking out, and then, I mean, I know what you're saying, because on the one hand, they saw it for themselves, but on the other, what a gruesome thing to witness then, like, you know. But I mean, we see the teams, all these teams here that we see so many times, like, in action from the police, families dragging things along with them, doing the boots on the ground, the posters, the investigations, the whole lot, and then, you know, this thing then of the canal being left open after that happened, like. I mean,
and the traffic just been allowed to continue, and my understanding is it was allowed to continue for more than 2 or 3 hours.
I mean, that's crazy. Like,
this wasn't just one canal boat that went through there that probably did the ultimate damage, but there were other canal boats before the police properly. And by then, it was too late in the day.
It was too late then, yeah.
Darkness had hit, and they just couldn't put, boots on the ground, but or skis in the water, as it were, and holes in the water, and the sonar, and couldn't act. And it took the following day. Sure, by then, you know. And again, it was the family with their own private search team, with assistance, I think, from a local search group, who actually discovered and passed it to police the shredded clothing prior to, you know, the full identification. You know, it just
so the evidence was shredded effectively out of it there again. But it's crazy, like, because I mean, it you know, like, if there was, like, this is the thing, this sort of indifference told for 48 hours is like, if that had been circulated, there's a guy missing, and look at the length of what you did there, a 9-minute cycle or something, going back to the map again. That there was a guy missing for a couple of days already. This is the small section of the city where he was missing. He's not
at home. Yeah, this is where he works. This is where he was. It's only a 20-minute distance. We have 3 points in it. He's in there. He's somewhere. He's in there.
Yeah, and it's like it's, you know, when if they put that out there, that look, we think he might have gone, like, it's like your man in Snatch said, he's not a set of effing car keys. Like, he was so if you see a blob come up, that the size of a body, you're going to go, that must be your man, like. But you know, so that was all preventable if they actually did the that was all preventable if they actually had better communications and put it out there, like, you know. It's crazy, like, it's madness, like, you know.
Yeah, it's nuts, and like I said, we'll get into our case analysis points, but we're talking about the same themes, you know, raising concerns in those critical 48 hours. And it doesn't matter, the Netherlands, Ireland, the UK, America, Australia, wherever, Germany, Spain, whatever country, it's critical, those first 48 hours. Once you pass that, you're in trouble. You're chasing your tail. Now, as I've said, the Dutch laws, when there is an absence of criminality in a missing person case, it kind of goes by the by, and it's not exclusive unless authorities have real reason to suggest criminality. They're a lot slower to act even when a family says, no, this isn't like him or this isn't like her, you know, something's up, something's seriously wrong, it's like, we'll fill out these forms and we'll have a look and we'll assess things and come back tomorrow and we'll think about it a bit more. There's no impetus to go, we're actually passing away the errors in the crucial errors.
The ironic thing here, Mick, actually is that in terms of criminality or whatever, the fact that the inaction is there means that you can't, in this case in particular, it's blatant that you can't
exclude the criminality.
Well, and you can't establish criminality because the poor guy's body was shredded and his family had to watch it. Like so like the evidence that would have established whether it was criminality or not was destroyed.
If there was an altercation, you're pushed into the canal. You didn't fall into the canal. You were pushed into the canal. That can't be established. Because,
and CCTV as well, like the
and CC, so, there's another law in the Netherlands. CCTV, unlike other countries under these, you know, liberal laws, CCTV generally is often not kept after 5 to 7 days. In other words, legally it doesn't have to be. So, you know, you let several days go and that's it. The footage is potentially gone. That's critical footage. So if you're looking at a missing person case a week later and you're banging on restaurant doors, hotel doors, retail outlets, and you're asking for CCTV footage from this day last week, well, sorry mate, that's gone, you know, we've taped over that, we don't keep that now, you know, because it's, hey, but isn't this your laws, you know, we don't keep that now. And that's another problem, let alone our cold cases where you're banging on doors asking somebody for CCTV footage from 10 or 15 years ago. Good luck, will you?
But a lot of them won't give CCTV to anyone other than the police either, like if that as well. So I mean, like I remember one time I was in the supermarket and I forgot I had to put in my card rather than tap it, and I went down and then I went, where the hell's my card? I left it in the thing. The scumbag in the queue behind me took my card.
Oh, he knew it, yeah.
Oh yeah. And then again, like you want to get hold of the, you know, only the police can do it, because he used it there and he went up to another store down the road, a Morrison's down the road, and used it again there. Yeah. And like you can't get the CCTV then, like it's only the police can get it, like. So you've all that to go on as well. So like with this situation, if they hold 48 hours, like you said, you've got 5 to 7 days. You know, what sort of a window is it? And then you'll be able to get it without the police either. So it's like either give people the autonomy to go and do the investigation themselves, and that's fine.
And it has happened, because your recent interview with Berna Feiden in the Ezra's case, Berna did on her own behalf manage to approach outlets, and actually they willingly said, of course we'll help you, we'll have it, even before the police had even properly looked for it. She already had it, and she passed it to them. And that shouldn't be happening in cases.
No, because this was doing, she did all that herself, like, and same with the Dealys as well, like it was Trevor Dealy's friend got the CCTV out of the back,
the analysis
on the corner
and
where
across organised it to the UK. Yep. So. Now we also have the other point, the later outreach and orgs families have set up, and we set up the Kevin Bell Foundation, the Miralles, the Nolan Miralles family setting up their own organisation, and you've experienced that as well, in particular when you went last December to the missing persons, National Missing Persons, you know, and the efforts that even families who've went through, and maybe even families who've had their own resolution, good or bad, you know, the work that they continue to do in that, you know, we've been through this, we don't want another family to go through what we've went through, and we're going to do everything to support them, to set up associations, non-profits, and essentially what we touched on there earlier, to essentially if it isn't written down, phone us and we'll support you, and we'll verbally give you that manual, because we've done it and we've gone through it. We know what you should be doing in hindsight, and that's another important detail.
Yeah, like one of the guys who spoke, the Lynch case there, I think they believe he took his own life in this big park in Texas, so he's still missing there, and that's very hard to manage that family. I think they were County Meath, and their son is lost over there, like.
And I suppose if we look at those three cases, and there's no, I'm not projecting onus and responsibility here but there are certainly, we've discussed some of the consistent patterns in regards timing, reaction when missing person, but cases are reported, but also we can't ignore the elephant in the room. There are consistent patterns there. Out with friends, late at night, very, very early hours of the morning. You're tired. Maybe you've consumed alcohol. You're on a bicycle. You're walking. Whether you live in a city, be it Rotterdam, Amsterdam, the geographic of that area is not a place, unless you really know it and are wary of it, to be going at those hours in the morning if you're not fully alert and aware. And sadly, we've looked at other cases outside of the three we've looked at, and the same pattern comes true. And I've Conor Murphy, 2019, body found, same circumstances. Edward Riley, 2022, body found, same thing, waterway. The only case I could find of the 8 or 10 I went through in the last month in researching was John Power, who I think he was a short time in Amsterdam, I think, and basically paid his landlord €600, left his passport, was in no communication, lost his phone, lost his mobile phone, and same fears, same concerns from the family, nothing for weeks. And out of the blue, he's one of the exceptional cases that I came across. He was found alive, in perfect spirits, completely oblivious that anybody was looking for him, until somebody said something to him that, I've just heard about you in the local news, your name, you're Irish, aren't you? John Power. The police are looking for you. And he'd ended up in Berlin and just went basically on a holiday bender, camping with 3 or 4 other friends, told no one, didn't tell his parents, didn't tell siblings, and literally, thank God, was found perfectly well, totally oblivious to the fact that he was on the Interpol list and every media network in Ireland and the Netherlands looking for him, where he'd originally disappeared from.
At least one family got good news anyway.
And he's one family that got good news. I'm afraid most of the cases I've looked at are very similar pattern to the 3 cases that we've looked at.
Yeah.
I don't know, Brian. There's no, like I said, I always say there's no manual for somebody in a family where there's a missing loved one. There's no manual that they can read through to be guided by, and above all, there's certainly no manual for someone in a different country where there's that removed access to them, unless they're in daily contact. And even then, this is the problem you come up against with local law enforcement, when it's well, sure, he's Irish, he's English, he's American, sure, he's backpacking, sure, he Sure, he was only 2 months in that last place he lived in. Sure, he's probably in the campsite. Sure, he's probably gone to Berlin. Sure, he's probably gone here. He's probably gone there. Don't be worrying. He'll turn up.
I think the authorities could do with a couple of manuals, Mick.
Yeah, a lot. Yeah.
Police, and so on. There, I think they could do with a bit of a shake up there, definitely, because again, it's the same teams we see over and over there, and the families having to
do their own thing. And thank God to organisations like the Kevin Bell. But a lot of the time these organisations are there when the worst of the worst happens. It's like, Christ, we found our son. It's not good.
Yeah.
How the hell do we get him home? And they step in, they help with the repatriation. But none of those families, when somebody goes missing, want to be dealing with that scenario of repatriating remains or a body. They need the assistance at the time somebody goes missing.
Yeah.
And it's compounded if it's in a different country.
Yeah. And even some of the, imagine having to deal there, the last case there with Paul Nolan Miralles, there was no intact body, there was just bits and pieces, and they're going, so these were repatriated over the course of weeks or months, and you're going, where do you draw the line and conduct a cremation then? Do you wait? There's all those kind of questions. You go, imagine the family having to deal all this, they witnessed this stuff, and then having to basically do the tidy up afterwards. It's just it doesn't bear thinking about it. It's like the woman said. It's like the mother said there about it. It's like a horror film. You look at horror films, you don't believe it could happen, but
really and it does. We lived it. Yeah.
Sorry, that was the sister said that.
The sister Caroline.
She summed it up well there. Very, very tragic cases.
Yeah, difficult. Yeah.
And I suppose the other thing as well to say is whatever about. I think added frustration there must be they find out the what, but they don't find out the how or the why. So
and they're often the missing. They're often the more important details sometimes,
exactly.
aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I know they got it to a certain extent with Andrew Furey, but with Noel Gill and Paul Nolan Miralles, I think there was a chance. I'm going to be blunt. There should have been a post-mortem on Noel Gill. There should have been a post-mortem done on him because. This kind of there was no external market. The whole point of doing a post-mortem is if you have any doubt, you do a post-mortem. Yeah. That's it. And it should just be done.
We saw the Gertie, situation with he collapsed in his car, a heart attack while all this is going on over in the Netherlands, completely unconnected.
Yeah.
Well, could Noel have had a heart attack? Could that have led to what happened to him? Again, families want a proper resolution, not just okay, he ended up in the canal, okay, but how? What, he tripped and fell? Was he pushed in? There's no proper. It's just.
That wasn't an adequate effort to find out what happened exactly. There should have been a post-mortem done, and then if that was inconclusive, it's inconclusive. Either way, there should have been a post-mortem to say this way presumably he died from drowning. But they don't know that either. You check what happened. It would have come out whether he died from drowning, what was in his system, was there anything further, and just because you can't see something in the outside doesn't mean
there's something going on the inside,
or whatever, and there was that, and the same with the other case. The fact, I don't know, back to this. Traffic on the canal wasn't shut down. That's just these things are unforgivable, really. You just go, this is ridiculous. It's crazy stuff. The canals are the equivalent of streets. The traffic should have been shut down when any foreign object was there. In the first place, the comms should have gone out to say we're looking for a body in this relatively small area of the city. And that's it. So keep your eyes peeled. And the minute something pop up like that, should have been just shut down. Then,
Yeah. I've seen it in Dublin City.
Yeah.
I remember.
Answers could have been got. Sorry, mate. I think answers could have been got. Could have been obtained for both of those guys there, and they weren't because of a lack of inaction from the authorities.
But I've seen it in Dublin City. I've seen it in Cork, in waterways, where somebody peering over, a canal bank, sees something in the water, alerts the police or phones the police straight away, and literally within half an hour there's a boat in the water looking, going, you're sure it wasn't a ball or something somebody threw in it, you're sure, or maybe just a bit of clothing floating, you're sure it was a body, and boom, somebody's pulled out. Tragically, unfortunately, sometimes, maybe a homeless person, are pulled out. But how can you go 24 hours with multiple people witnessing a body in a canal and it not be found for like a day and a half later? It's just bonkers.
Crazy, yeah.
Look, not the most uplifting episode, but yeah, the vagaries of life. In this case, if you're missing in the Netherlands, and what you might be going through or expecting. Thank you for joining us for this Missing in the Netherlands episode of Radio Espial. We might come back to this. We're not going to come back to it anytime soon. I think we've done enough on it for the moment. If somebody thinks of a case that we should have covered, or we should have mentioned, or there's a full timeline, by all means suggest it in the comments. Like I said, we may at a later stage return to this series, but for now, God bless and take care. We'll see you again soon in another timeline. And thank you, Brian, for joining us. Okay, take care, everybody.
All the best. Bye now.